Now we're rolling. Damage Plan MMA podcast. I'm Jason. As always, my co-host, Mr. Zack Partridge. We're back with another Fighter Spotlight podcast. Finally, after at least a year, we have Dalton Williams back on. As he's been trying to come on. He's been trying to get a fight lined up. Finally got a fight lined up for May 6th. Dalton, we finally got you on the podcast, man. May 6th is your day's finally here, man.
Yeah, I mean, dude, huge relief. I mean, going from, I think it's almost been a year and a half now.
So you were supposed to fight on this Mountain Force card that Mina was on, correct?
Yeah, yep. So I was supposed to fight Robert Pelto. Almost a year and a half ago. Same card as Mina. There was the main card was Namajunas versus Tyson Craig.
Yep.
So I was on that card.
We were there. Yeah, we were there.
Oh yeah. I was ready to roll, and I just unfortunately I made a bad decision, had a hard sparring session about a week and a half before, and my doctor didn't clear me with a concussion. So,
well, why'd you go to
part of the sport? Well, because I was planned to go that day anyway, and unfortunately my coach decided to call an audible. He was like, "Hey, we're doing a hard session today," and I was like, "Okay, well, I got the doctors tomorrow." And anyway, look, that's when you train with Connie Carrera, you never know what's going to happen.
Connie brings the intensity, man. He definitely brings the intensity to the game.
Yep. So it's, I think it was a good learning experience. And truthfully, being said is, I think sparring with Connie is probably going to be harder than the next 10 fights I do. Really, truly. Because that guy, I mean,
for sure,
he's good. He's got a hype behind him for a reason. So
Dalton, what made you decide to take an MMA fight? And give us a little bit about your background and how you came to the decision to take in your first MMA fight.
Yeah, so it's actually a really funny story. So I did wrestle in high school. Wasn't anything special. I was definitely the weakest member of my team, but my team was really good. So it helped to have a lot of guys that just, I think that the wrestling mindset is just, it just dominates as far as any art goes. The mindset you have to like wrestle and wrestle competitively, it's just so focused on you're going to win and there's no other option, right? It's just 6 minutes of just go. And I love jits, I love Muay Thai, but those ones are more, you can rest, you can react, you can take a breather, but wrestling you can't, right? So I loved wrestling. Like I said, nothing too special. But once I got out of high school, it took 2 years and just didn't really wrestle much. I had a buddy that lived up here, and I saw that, he was doing jiu-jitsu, he was doing Muay Thai. He was flashing his gold medal that he got from a Naga tournament. His name's Keegan Drazen, and I just messaged him and I was like, dude, like, where are you doing all this stuff, right? Like, how did you get into this? And he's like, oh man, I got a place, like, come train with me. And then he actually mentioned that he was getting ready to potentially take a fight. And he's like, hey, would you come work with, wrestling with me? I know you had a solid wrestling background. And anyway, so he kind of lured me in, right? And after training with him a couple times and working on his wrestling, and he's like, why don't you stick around for Muay Thai? Come check it out. And then, then I was hooked, man. I loved it. And so I trained, I loved it. And then just that challenge inside of me is like, man, I got to do this. I got to see what I could do, So that's when I started reaching out and, talking to my coaches and kind of saying like, hey guys, like what, where do you think I'm at? Do you think I'm going to go in there and get, my head knocked off, or what's going on? And, again, having great guys in my corner like Connie Carrera and Casey Wilkinson and, hard hitting dudes that are technical and just good at what they do. And, it's just helped a lot. And anyway, so yeah, they just kind of convinced me and I got to the point where, I felt comfortable enough to step into the octagon. And after, I watched Logan Hubble and Jackson and Mina and all these teammates of mine that are going in there and just crushing. Right. And so having that team that just was kicking butt, I wanted to be a part of it. Right. So that's kind of how I got into it. And here we are finally.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, because that's one thing that I've always said is like, I do sparring rounds like with some really good pros like Ben Moa, Joe Rodriguez, who fought in Bellator and Glory Kickboxing.
You spar with Cole Faust too, don't you?
Oh yeah. Me and Cole spar. I was talking more like in the beginning.
Gotcha.
And I was going with those guys, and that was like the nerves that helped calm me before my first fight was. I'm like, well, if I can get punched by those guys, like I'm like, this will be fine,
Absolutely. Yeah, so, I don't know if either one of you guys know like Michael Guzman, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that dude hits like a truck, and so I take some. I I guess some confidence where I've eaten some of his shots, and they've dazed me. But if he can't put me out, I don't know if many people can. So we'll see, right?
Yeah. It'll
Yeah.
be
So
good, man.
it's good. I'm just finally excited to be able to finally step in the actual octagon. Just
So okay, so I'm gonna correct you on that. It's not an octagon, right?
all right. Is it 6 squares, hexagon? I was never good at
I don't
math
know.
and geometry.
I think their cage is 7-sided, but yeah, no, you're good.
All right, the cage, Zach, the cage.
The cage
For political correctness here.
Sure.
So
No,
Dalton,
well, the UFC owns a patent on it.
yeah,
All right.
that's
If there,
true.
if so, if there-
No,
if
that
show-
makes sense. Yeah,
so
that
if a
makes
show
sense. You're
actually,
right.
if any show actually put like an octagon and had fighters fighting in an octagon, they would
They
get a
could
cease and desist letter from the UFC.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
And
It
I
makes
happen
sense
to know
though.
somebody locally who's gotten that cease and desist letter before
Yeah.
because they had an octagon and did a show.
So for any UFC people watching the podcast, I rescind my comment.
I don't think we have anything to worry about. It'd be nice if we had something to worry about, but I
Yeah,
don't think
there
we
you
do.
go.
Hey, so Dalton, who's your opponent, and what do you know about him?
Yeah, so his really all I know is his name. It's Austin Schumann, and he
Okay.
trains, I believe, at Elite Performance, which, from what I understand, is Jeremy Horn's gym, if I understand correctly. So,
Yep.
I don't know too much about him, really, truly, and quite frankly, like I don't know, I might have a little bit of a different mindset. I don't really care who it is that I'm fighting. I just focus on myself because I can't change what they're gonna do, right? But I can change what I do. So. I don't know too much about him. I mean, I know I've heard of guys that go to that gym, so I imagine that if he's training with them, he's probably got some game and he's going to bring it. And like I said, I don't know much about him, to be honest. But quite frankly, like I really don't care what he does. I just know what I'm going to do and my game plan and where my strengths and weaknesses are, and
Where do you feel
That's all
like
I can do.
your biggest strengths are?
I mean, just with the wrestling background, right? I think that just default, if push comes to shove and we're equal in every other aspect, I think I'll have a wrestling advantage. That being said, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out there and try and have a high school wrestling match, right? Because the one thing that, as I say, wrestling is my background. High school wrestling is a lot different than MMA wrestling, right?
For sure.
I'm not
Oh, yeah.
I'm not eating uppercuts on my doubles, right?
Or
So
head kicks?
Or head kicks.
yeah, exactly. And so there's just a lot that could go wrong if I lean too heavily on my wrestling. So I do think my wrestling is probably my biggest strength, but it's definitely not my only strength, right? I've been working a lot of I've got, like I said, Casey Wilkinson, I've got Ben Child. Those guys are phenomenal Muay Thai fighters. And so I've been working a lot with them to try and sharpen up my striking, because I think my striking is where I probably lacked the most coming into this, but I feel good. I think that, if at the very minimum, I think he and I go 50-50 tit for tat for striking. But I do think that if the opportunity arises where we do turn it into a bit of a wrestling or grappling match, I think I have the upper edge there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
So
nice to always have that to fall back on.
Yeah. I hope
Yeah,
not
it's
to have
fun.
to fall back on it, but yeah.
I wouldn't know. I can't wrestle still.
so Dawn, you obviously we talked about it. You had a fight planned a year and a half ago.
Yep.
What have you been doing to stay sharp for this last year and a half? I know where you've been doing, because I've seen some of your stuff at the gym, but what have you been doing to kind of keep your mind right, keep the tools sharpened? What are some things you've been doing?
So I think the biggest thing is, like cutting the weight is important and the physical aspect is important. But I think that really, truly, like at this level where we're fighting at, I really just think it comes down to who wants it more and who's mentally tougher, At least that's just how I see it. Right. And so I kind of just obsessed over this fight. My wife's not too happy about it because it means less time with her. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. And, I love her to death. She's been a huge support system because she's been, not happily, but willingly been able to let me kind of do this just because I have something to prove to myself. And, but I think mentally just clocking in every morning and, just coming to that realization, like, okay, X amount of days until they close that door and it's him or me. Right. And I think the biggest thing for me mentally is that every single morning when I wake up and every single night before I go to bed, I picture myself getting my hand raised, right? I picture myself getting a knockout. I picture myself getting a submission. I picture myself getting a decision. I picture myself winning in every aspect that I can, so that when it comes down to that actual fight, I'm not going to have to, it's not going to be like I won the belt. I've already won in my head 1,000 times. So that time's not going to be any different. Right. So in that aspect, mentally, I feel prepared. If I didn't, I don't think I'd be stepping in there, but I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to get in there. I'm ready to prove to myself, right? Like, I'm not doing this for anyone else. I'm proving to myself that, look, I wrestled good, right? I'm still, strong. I can do this. I can, I want to know that if push came to shove, that with my bare hands, if someone was trying to, get into my house or take my kid or take my wife, that I could just whoop on them. You know what I mean? And so that's my mindset as I'm going in there, and I'm like, this is a survival mindset and I'm ready for it. Right. And then that's just where I'm at.
I can't fight, so I have a gun on my nightstand for guys like you.
See, like, hey, I'm not saying I don't have guns.
No,
right?
I
want to get real freaky. I throw the flashbang and pull out the tomahawk.
There you go.
Right. But
hey,
but my point is push comes to shove.
I knew what you were saying.
I'm ready to roll.
So I just lost my train of thought. It came. What are the plans? Obviously not looking ahead from May 6th, but what are your intentions after this fight? Do you plan on keeping fighting, or is this kind of a one-off thing where you just want to get in there and see what you can do?
So if my wife's watching, honey, once we'll talk about it. This will be great. Assuming she's not watching, man, I want to fight as many times as I can. Right.
All right.
I think with this particular fight, this one's a big deal to me because we do have a baby girl coming in July.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so we're stoked. It's about time that my 4-year-old had someone else to play with. So we're really excited for that. And so I did make her a promise that I'll give it a year without stepping back into the cage, not the octagon, but the cage. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to train, right? I'm still going to stay in shape. I'm still going to train. But it's not going to be my primary focus for at least a year. And in that year, I've got, I don't know if you guys know Ikaika. He's also fighting on the same card as me. He's a teammate of mine. His goal is he wants to get a belt at 185 and 205. And so I said, look, dude, if I'm not fighting in 185 for a year, let's focus on that. Let's get you up there and then, move aside when I come in. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's the plan is I want to stay in shape. I want to work with him, keep him rolling, keep him, keep his momentum going on whatever goals he wants. And then obviously contributing back to the gym here because they've helped me so much. So I feel like I'd be kind of a selfish butthead to take all the knowledge that I've learned from them and then just disappear. Right.
Awesome.
But as far as my actual fight plans, yeah, I'll be waiting at least a year because I did promise my wife. But after that, and if she changes her mind, I'll be in there.
She won't. I've said this before. My wife, she's very similar. She's supportive, willing, and all that. But she'll tell you, like, the fighting isn't hard.
Yeah,
you worry about your husband fighting. It's the fight camp that's hard. It's hard on the family. They have to, we make sacrifices, but we're doing what we love. They have to make sacrifices so we can do what we love.
100%. 100%. And I'm sure, your wife was probably a rock star just like mine. I mean, she's been rock solid in this, like I know that there's been days where it kind of like, it almost breaks my heart a little bit because I know like I have to, like I can't miss this training day. Like my coaches have made it very clear. And, my son's freaking out. She's, 6.5 months pregnant. The weather's crappy. The car's out of gas, and for her to basically not be like, come home right now, screw your fighting. Like that was huge for me. And so if anything, like I want to win so badly, right? Like so badly just for the aspect of, so I can tell my wife, hey, like what all that stuff you did was not wasted. I promise,
So here, let me just too. I know it's easy to say like before, the payoff isn't a win. It's just going out there. So here's the thing, like you've gone to the fights, right?
Oh yeah. So
here's the thing, win or lose, I've never cared if, especially newer amateurs, I'm not that far from being a newer amateur myself. Like, but newer
you don't have to be humble, bro. You're
newer amateurs, it's more about did they go in to like give max effort? They show up, they make weight, they made weight, great. Like they came in, they tried their hardest. Like they train, you can see that they trained hard for this, like stuff like that. Like for me, that's the win, is just to be proud of it. If you get your hand
just
raised,
to admire the journey.
I've been on both sides of it, right? Like if you get your hand raised, great. If your opponent gets their hand raised, great. But if you went out there and you did everything you could and you performed well and you gave it your best, like that's the like you'll have everybody's respect from that. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be a win to get the cherry on top. Like fighting is a unique. I mean, winning's important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying winning's not important, right?
It probably
But I'm just
helps
saying,
when you win.
It's not like oh, this wasn't worth it if you don't
Yeah.
get the win. You know what I mean?
No, and I think that either way, like to your credit, like the journey that I've done so far, like it's just different, right? Wrestling was intense in high school, but you know, you've got the next weekend to compete, right? And so in this particular case, like admiring, like really loving the experience. Like I hate it, but I love it at the same time, right? Like oh man, the training is just excruciating. But at the end of every day when I go home, like, man, I feel good about my effort today, right? And so I totally see your point, right? My only thing is I really want to get that win too.
Get it.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool,
Dalton, how do you see yourself getting your hand raised May 6th?
Well, I mean, like I said, you know, a little earlier, I've envisioned it a million ways. But I think that if we just, you know, roll the dice and play the chance game of what happens, I think I get a submission. I think that's probably the most, highest quality or highest odds of me winning the fight. I think awesome. I really, truly, the only way that I see myself not winning this fight is if he has better conditioning than me. And I've been putting in the work to make sure that isn't the case. But really, truly, if we're going to stand up and strike, great. I think I win there. Maybe not by knockout, but I think we win by decision. If we go to the ground, I'm going to have the ground control time, right? If it's not the time, I'm going to get the submission. So the only way that I see myself really losing this is if I get tired first. If he can mentally break me, I lose this fight. But like I said, I've never been stronger mentally where I'm at than I am right now. So
awesome. Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Any sponsors? Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I mean, Wasatch Combat Sports, right?
Awesome,
that's the gym I train at. I mean, they literally, if there isn't a better coaching staff, in my opinion. I mean, you have phenomenal coaches, right? Like Connie Carrera was here for a good long time. Yep. I've been recently working with, like I said, Casey Wilkinson's been through the whole journey. Ben Child has stepped up the last 3 months to come train with me. And I mean, that dude, he's more in your age bracket, Jason, but the dude can throw and kick and strike. I mean, everything. Right. And so just working with him he's got that mental toughness factor.
Awesome.
And I just have the best teammates, man. I mean, that's what it is. I don't think that I'm the best guy in the gym by any means, but I know that if I can stand with my teammates, like I can stand with anyone out there. Cause look at our track record, right? We don't have very many losses coming from this gym. Right. Yeah. So I just got a good team. And then obviously my wife, I think she's probably the anchor that holds everything together. But other than that, man, I mean, just there's a lot of people that have helped me on my journey, and I would be here for an hour if I tried to list them all off. Awesome,
man. Well, May 6th, reach out to Dalton, support local MMA, get your tickets, go watch Dalton throw down in the cage. Shout out to Mrs. Williams for putting up with your crap while you're going through all this training camp, and she's pregnant. But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on. We'll let you get out of here, and we'll see you May 6th, brother.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Right.
Take care.
Yeah.